Thank you all for joining us for today's event. My name is Nick, and I'm an events host here at Powell's Books in Portland, Oregon. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to check out our lineup of upcoming virtual and live events by visiting our website at powells.com. If you don't already do so, please follow us on our social media channels via Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Today, though, we are thrilled to have with us Daniel O'Malley and his new book, Blitz, in conversation with Charlaine Harris. Born and raised in Canberra, Australia, Daniel O'Malley graduated from Michigan State University and earned a master's degree in medieval history from Ohio State University. He is the author of the Checquy novels Stiletto and The Rook, which won the 2013 Aurealis Award for Best Science Fiction Novel. Today, he'll be talking about Blitz, the riveting new thriller in the Rook Files series. September 1940, 3 women of the Checquy secret organization tasked with protecting Britain from supernatural threats stand in the sky above London and see German aircraft approach. Forbidden by law to interfere, all they can do is watch as their city is bombed until Pamela, the most sensible of them, breaks all the rules and brings down a Nazi bomber with her bare hands. The 3 resolve to tell no one about it, but they soon learn that a crew member is missing from the downed bomber. Charred corpses are discovered in nearby houses, and it becomes apparent the women have unwittingly unleashed a monster. Through a city torn by the Blitz, the friends must hunt down the enemy before he kills again. O'Malley will be joined in conversation by Charlaine Harris, who has written at least 40 full-length novels in various genres, including urban fantasy, science fiction, and horror. Also numerous short stories, as well as 3 graphic novels in collaboration with Christopher Golden. She's been featured on many bestsellers lists, and her works have been adapted for 3, soon to be 5 television shows, hopefully. Her newest book, The Serpent in Heaven, comes out on November 15th. So today's event will include an audience Q&A. So use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen if you'd like to ask a question. As well, if someone's typed a question you'd also like to know the answer to, please upvote that particular question by clicking the thumbs up button. Lastly, please support Daniel and Powell's by purchasing a copy of his book from us. A link to buy Blitz will be shared in the chat a couple of times during the event, as well as links to Charlaine's books as well. Daniel and Charlaine, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is splendid to be here. Well, it's splendid to be in my house, but you know, if I were there, it would have been nice too.
Okay, I have a question that I thought about. Actually, I thought about this ahead of time because the structure of your book is so complex. Did you write each time period separately and then splice them? Or did you write it sequentially?
It was probably one of the stupider decisions I've ever made. And I've made, you're probably well aware, I've made many stupid decisions in my life. Okay, so for those of you who haven't read the book yet, there's 2 timelines. One storyline is going ahead in World War II, and then one of storyline is happening now-ish. And every other chapter, it flips back and forth between the 2. And I thought, this is going to be brilliant. I'm going to be so profound. I'm going to have links and connections all throughout. Because a couple of my favorite books do that. Neil Stephenson's Cryptonomicon. I don't know, Charlaine, have you ever read it?
Have not.
Genius.
Putting it on my list.
Amazing book. And it has a prequel. He then wrote a prequel trilogy set in the 1600s. But Cryptonomicon, you know, partially World War II, partially late 90s. And I really loved that format. And I thought this is going to work. This will be great. And also a couple of time travel books I've read have done that sort of thing. Connie Willis, whose works I really loved. So
yes.
Amazing. Have you ever read her book, Doomsday Book?
Oh, 3 times.
Amazing.
I learned
medieval history.
Oh yeah, you just learn something from it every time. Not just, you know, factual stuff about the medieval world, but about writing.
Absolutely. So I thought this works. This is a thing I'm interested in, and oh my! And I ended up writing I mean, this is a fairly hefty tome, much longer than I meant it to be. But I sort of felt, oh, well, each story needs to have, you know, beginning, middle, end, and so on. And really, it was a case of, all right, I've written, you know, the World War II bit. Okay, it is time. I should jump across. So it wasn't like, right, World War II, right, modern day. It was flipping back and forth. But then I'd get an idea. I'd be like, okay, no, I've got this. I've ended on a cliffhanger for the World War II thing. I better push on with this, and then I'll come back and insert a chapter. So it nearly drove me to a home, and certainly drove me to a certain amount of drinking. You know,
as happens often.
It's a risk of the trade, I hope.
It is a large book. I had to put a pillow on my lap to hold it up. And well, it's large. It's large. My hands are not.
For that kind of workout, you know, that wrist.
Yeah, and if I got two, I could just use them as my barbell.
I was really braced for you to be like, check this out. You know, this is all from me.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think it also lends itself well towards Kindle then. You know, it's the kind of thing where you're like, it'll be fine to have it in an ebook. You know, you won't pull a disc or slip a muscle or whatever.
True.
Yeah.
But then you won't have the actual book to hold.
It's always nice to be able to display it. You know, there's no thrill like seeing somebody reading your book in public. You know, it doesn't happen a lot for me.
Oh, well, your books are so big.
But there was a girl in the shopping mall I walked by, and she was sitting reading Stiletto once, and you're like, and you find yourself trying to assume the author pose. You're like, maybe she'll recognize me.
Do I look strangely familiar?
Not notice at all. Yeah. You know, so undignified. And somebody on the bus was reading it, and I was like, they're not going to ask if I wrote it. You know.
I saw a woman in an airport once who was reading one of my books, and I thought, I've got to say something, because, you know, you just don't really catch people doing that. You know, people read your books, but to actually see them doing it is like self-gratification in a way. So I went up to her and I said, are you enjoying that book? She said, she didn't even look up. She said, oh, yes, I read everything she writes. And I'm going, ta-da! Honestly,
you identify yourself?
I did. But, you know, after about 5 minutes, she would have paid me to go away.
I'm always braced. I mean, I've asked one person, was like, are you enjoying it? And I was really braced to be like, shit. The author is clearly a moron. And somebody once recommended it in a bookstore attendant. I was buying like a stack of books, and the person behind the counter was like, have you read The Rook by Dan O'Malley? And I'm like, you're very sweet. Sorry, I'm waving to your small dog in the background. Such a good dog.
Yes, he is a good dog.
And it was Colt?
Colt, yeah. Abigail is here too, but she's doing something else. I don't know what. Abigail's a corgi.
They're such cool dogs.
Well, you know, we get them at the pound, or they wander up in our yards, or our kids leave them here. And
how could a corgi be in the pound ever?
She had been mistreated.
Gosh, that's terrible.
Somebody had broken her tail, and, you know, that's, you know, bad stuff. But she's been real happy with us. I
would say she's come to a blessed home, but still, you know, a good home. But I assume, you know.
Well, we try. We try.
You're like, we have her working.
Yeah. She has to pull a sled at Christmas.
Spit dog in the wheel, turning the food, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, we're such dignified authors. Anyway.
You know, I don't know dignified authors. I mean, dignity is not me. So
occasionally you meet them, and then you're like, wow, that's the elite breed. Yeah. I met the authors who were working on the Rook TV show, the chief writers, who were A, super clever, and B, super nice, and C, you know, tall and blonde, and a husband and wife team. And they were the best looking writers I've ever seen in my life, you know. And it was sort of like, you know, here are the elves, and then Bilbo Baggins is here. To, you know.
Was it fun being on the set?
It was so cool. So, you know, going out to London, and I'm like, God, I'm so wise to have set this in a city that I like to visit. And it was in Goldsmiths Hall, which is this ornate marble building with, you know, gold leaf everywhere. And I'm just sort of looking around, and they said, is it as beautiful as you imagined? I'm like, this is way better than anything I could have imagined.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? I mean, you know, you're sort of walking along, and there's like a marble bust in an alcove, and somehow they had put one of the characters' names in writing, seemingly engraved behind it. And I was like, how is this done? You know, or the four blonde twin, the Gestalt people are walking down the hallway in unison. And it's like, this is very, very eerie sensation, you know. So, and everyone was so nice, you know. I mean, they didn't entrust me with any lines, which was very wise. So what I do is, at one point, when the main character walks in wearing a very short dress, my role is to do this. I'm like, you know, I sort of nod lavishiously at this girl in the very short dress, and then the rest of it's just me being like this, which is all they should have wanted me to do, you know.
Now, I had a line in True Blood, and I still get not royalty checks. I still get checks, $2.19, sometimes 98 cents, you know, but it was an epic performance.
I should have lobbied for a line. I could have been sitting pretty on my
That's right.
£1.15.
After 6 years, you could have taken yourself out to lunch.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, McDonald's anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, would you do it again? I mean, if somebody made you an offer for Stiletto?
Absolutely. I mean, it was such a great experience, and they made changes, and people were like, "Oh, are you okay that they made changes?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
You know, writing a book and writing a TV show, I think, are very different things, and I sort of know what works in a book. I don't know how it's going to work on TV, but also, you know, people don't sort of go into these things thinking, "I'm going to slavishly reproduce this book." Which, I mean, look, if it's a classic, they've got to, you know, they're gonna want to stick with it. But otherwise, if they have a good idea, if they have a great actor, they're going to want to go, you know, in different ways, and work with it, you know, run with it. Gosh.
It looks like you've got a question down there.
Oh, okay. Oh. All right. What do we got? Oh, we have a few. All right.
Good.
Okay. All right. Randy Robinson asks, to you and me both, I guess, do we have any amazing ideas for a book that we haven't tried because it's so far off our norm? You want to go first? You can go first.
No, I go on and try it. I have no hidden ideas. I don't like writing the same book over and over, as you obviously agree.
Oh, okay.
Because your books are
like,
so...
You obviously do.
Like you do all the time, you slavish imitator. No, your books are startlingly original every time, which is one reason I'm such a big fan of yours. And I feel that that's what I try to do in my career also. So I don't hoard ideas. Now that I'm about to finish the next to last Gunny Rose book, people are beginning to say, what are you going to do next? And I'm going, hell if I know.
So reassuring.
Yeah, something will happen in here. It has before.
Yes, somebody will irritate me, and I'll try to think of a good way to kill them.
I'll think,
fabulous. You know?
Yes, there you go. What about you?
I have a bunch of different ideas. I mean, I have a lot of ideas for the Rook Files Checquy series. I really should figure out a single coherent name for those books. But I also have a bunch of different things I'd like to, because I trained as a historian, you know, a medievalist.
Yeah.
So useful, so practical. You know, I thought, well, you know, Doomsday Book will happen and I'll be sent back in time a whole bunch. But I have some historical fiction I really want to write, and some thrillers, not supernatural, but, you know, that sort of thing. And a couple murder mysteries. I've always wanted to write a murder mystery set in the Canberra dog park. I always thought that would be a good, which no one can use. That's my idea.
Okay, why specifically the Canberra dog park?
Well, okay, so, you know, I take my dog to the dog park, and the dogs do their socializing, and then, you know, and then the people do their socializing, and you get like a good variety of people. I've always thought that would be kind of a fun thing to do. So I have a few concepts, but I'm still recovering from Blitz. Actually, I'm not. I'm working on the next thing already. So on that score.
So you just lied to everybody.
Like, why am I even say? It sounded so self-effacing, but really, no.
I'm still recovering from that terrible experience.
Like, didn't you finish it months ago? I'm like, it's very, very strenuous. Oh, Ralph Bachman asked, who is our favorite actor from a TV adaptation of our work specifically? I'm not answering that. That's not a reasonable question. I can't afford to make enemies.
No, there have been so many.
I know, right? Honestly, these astounding people, and you're just like,
There's nobody I would have ever said, oh, that actor was horrible, and I'm sorry he was in something that I generated.
No.
I always believe in when they hire the best person for the role, not the prettiest person for the role.
Don't give any examples there.
No, I never would. I never
this one
would.
person, oh my God, very talented. No, that was the problem. They were all gorgeous people. And after I went to shoot my cameo, and then I got to go to the premiere, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
When you get home and you're like, oh my God, I live in a slum. And everyone around me is less attractive than these professional models. This is outrageous,
When they sit still, someone comes up and starts messing with their hair. I mean, the makeup and hair person follows them everywhere. I thought, when I sit still, I'm just sitting still. Nobody does anything to make me look better.
I am still in touch with the makeup people from the Rook TV show, and I have written to them occasionally asking questions. And I slid one of them into Blitz. And actually, I also slid the wardrobe, the head of wardrobe, who was very patient and conceals his horror. He's like, "Do you know how to tie a bow tie?" And I was like, "I do not." And he's like, "I'll do it on my leg, and then I'll give it to you." It's like, this is mortifying. And so I wrote, "Thank you so much. Would you like to be a villain or a hero in the books? Do you want to be?" And he was like, "Oh, a villain, absolutely."
Everybody wants to be a villain.
And so he is the character who can control cloth with his mind. I'm like, yeah, I'll throw in a Vincent. That's his gig. So hopefully one day he'll say it. And the lady who took care of me when I first got there, because I got to the set and there was like the large security guard, and he was like, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, and I was really, jet lagged, and I'm like, I'm the novelist. And he's like, "The novelist?" I was like, "Oh God, I'm Dan O'Malley. I think they're expecting me." He's like, "Dan O'Malley is here? The novelist?" I've made a huge mistake. And then this lovely Cockney girl comes and is like, "Mr. O'Malley, welcome. We'll take you straight to your trailer." And I'm like, "The novelist will go to his trailer." Anyway, I made her a crime lord. I named the crime lord after her. She was clearly capable of controlling everybody and in charge of everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, when you're in charge of one of those sets, it's incredible, the detail that you have to take care of, and it seems like there's a crisis every minute.
I mean, I've worked in government, and I was like, oh my God, these people are much more strict. I mean, everyone's works very hard in government.
Yeah.
Naturally. But these people,
of course,
this is a war zone, and you need to be here, and you need to be here. It was amazing. So. Yeah.
Do you still have your day job?
I have left the day job. I'm trying my hand at the full-time novelisting, writering, which I enjoy a lot. Each day I'm into a library, often the National Library, which is a very majestic building. I'm like, here I am in my palace of writing. I shall now do these things. But I do miss having people around to bother. I'm like, I have my librarian friends now. I'm like, oh, thank God you're here. An anecdote or a story quickly. And the security people and some of the same people come to the library each day and we'll be like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they'll be like, "Oh, I'm working on my Latin dissertation." I'm like, "I'm writing a fight scene with 2 cassowaries." And we're both like, I think we know who won
sure
that.
You are.
God. So I'm liking the full-time noveling. We'll see how it pans out, but it's amazing how much more you get written when that's what you're doing, as opposed
Isn't that the truth? I've been doing this for, last year was my 40th year as a published writer.
Wow.
So
were you full-time noveling the whole time, or did you also have a day job?
Yeah. When I married my current husband of 43 years, he offered me the opportunity to stay home and write full time.
Wow.
Which was incredible. And he's happy about that now. For a while, he wasn't sure it was going to work out very well. Yeah. Oh, she's not doing much. But it did work out, and I've been so much happier.
Can I ask what you did? Did you work beforehand? You don't
I
have to.
did. I was a terrible employee. I worked in an offset dark room at a newspaper.
Oh,
which was standing up on concrete all day with lots of chemicals.
but this is okay. Were you like developing the film and stuff?
Yeah, developing the whole page of the paper.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm sure printing's changed completely now. I
Mm.
did that, and then I worked at a small ad agency, typesetting.
Oh, okay. I think it'd be like copy editing, and like they asked me to stop.
You
throwing
would
in these
think.
vampires, you know.
You would think, but no.
You get in the habit. You know, I was working in government. I'm like, oh man, this report could really be spiced up a bit. If I threw in some witty dialogue in a fight scene, this is really gonna pop.
Yes.
And they're like, please don't do that.
Everyone would read my reports.
Exactly. But I'm so glad that, you know, you had these jobs that you were not suited for. My first job out of grad school, I moved back to Australia and was a busboy, you know, a dish pig, as they so charmingly call it here. And I was like, wow, that master's in medieval history is really I know, isn't it so and we don't tip in this country much either, so it wasn't even like the dignity.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not a tip. We pay a reasonable wage. I received.
Oh well, yeah. I can't say we do.
Yeah, you know, but I mean, I was a waiter in the States. So you may have noticed, everyone who's listening, that I speak with an American accent. My parents are American, and I've always had an American accent. But when I was a waiter in the States, I would put on a very bad fake Australian accent. And my tips were fantastic as a result. They'd be like, oh, I love your English accent. I'd be like, thanks, love, you know. But they're not as thrilled with the American accent. They're like, you can see them thinking he's going to want a tip, but yeah. And then segued into public service. But when I left the coffee shop, they were like, thank you, you know, and dear friends, but like, you're the rudest person we've ever had work here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? People loved me. And they're like, some people loved you. Others were taken aback by your forthright observation. I'm like,
and they waited till you were leaving to tell you this.
They were very nice. I mean, I wasn't like, you know, backhanding people or, you know.
Go home and change that shirt immediately.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it would be a case of somebody saying, you know, oh, we'd like a fried egg. I'm like, I didn't even know we made fried eggs. Is that on the menu? And somebody's like, stop saying that. Oh man. Okay, professional vibes.
Yes. Aren't there any more questions? Surely there are questions.
Oh, there are questions. There are.
Oh,
okay.
good. Super
Laura
good.
Turner has asked, from all of the writing you both have done, what was your favorite segment/chapters to write? Okay.
Oh, when I got to kill lots of people.
Books.
Oh, well, if you live long enough, anybody can write 40 books. I mean, that's just one book a year. That's doable.
Thanks.
Well, maybe not for you, Dan, because your books are so big.
I mean, really, you know, Blitz is essentially 2 books.
It is.
Let's go with that. That makes me sound less.
It is 2 books for the price of double one.
Exactly. Especially because, you know, apparently paper is very expensive at the moment. So like, guilt trip me. Great. Okay.
If they charge by the page, you'd be in trouble.
Is there a favorite segment or chapter or one of your favorites that springs to mind for you?
Oh yeah. In the Sookie Stackhouse series, the chapter where she finds out that Bill was assigned to become her honey, and the betrayal. And I thought, yeah, I'm sitting there, and I'm sure you do this too. I'm going, this is too bad to do. I just can't do this to them. And then you think, yeah,
people won't like them and they won't like me, you know? Oh yeah. No, that was
so mean.
Such a good sequence to read as well. For me, the first one, you know, everything's so undignified. In the Rook, there's a sequence in which they meet a duck that can tell the future.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, this is I'm so brilliant. This is like a new interpretation. And it was sort of a throwback to The Black Cauldron. I don't know if you ever saw that movie or read those children's books. And they had the oracular pig, which I always thought was so cool. I'm like, I'm going to do the duck. And I'd written the sequence with the duck telling the future. And then I thought, wait a minute, what am I I have to the duck can't stay. It'll change everything. And I sort of said to my dad, do you have any ideas? And my dad is not a sci-fi fantasy person. He's like, well, you know, they would do this with fortune. Like, that's genius. Oh my God. And so I just tore through the sequence in which the duck ends up getting killed. And everyone's like, how could you do that? And I'm like, that was a lot of fun to write, honestly.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
very pleased with myself for that.
After all, how long do ducks live?
Yeah, you know, but I don't, but in researching it, and I tend, and you've probably noticed, I tend to go off on tangents. I'll be like, I'll just do a quick bit of research and then I'll throw, oh my God. And I spend a good 3 hours researching how people get ducks ready for like shows, for like the 4-H shows and stuff. You can, you know, you gloss up your duck and Vaseline its feet. I'm like, I've got to throw this in. And my editor was like, this is all very interesting, but you've devoted a good amount of time to duck, not even duck husbandry, but duck
grooming.
Yeah, getting it ready for the pageant. So fine, we'll cut out some of the duck preparations, but not duck. Oh dear.
But you had a good time, right? That's
Yeah,
what
it
we're
was
supposed to be doing.
It's the main, I mean, the main thing is to entertain myself, and then if other people like it, well, really, it's just alarming, you know, that there are other people like me. So,
But not surprising.
wait a minute. Somebody has asked, Dan, what are the odds you'll have a book out in 2032? I'm gonna brisbane for the. I hope that's a typo. Pretty good. I like to assume that by 2032 I'll have at least one or two more books out.
I hope so. Your books are longer.
They are, but I'm determined to make to be less indulgent. You know, I don't need to have quite this many extra side. You know, in Blitz, for instance, they go to a private club and there's the bar. And I thought, you know what, I should explain how I have an amusing idea about like the wood of the bar. And I go on for 5 or 6 pages about it. And here's the backstory for the bar. And I'm like, this may be a little more information than people need, but it really entertained me.
Maybe you could put it in an addendum.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the bar.
Or more on the bar. See here.
A collection of, you know, weird ass little minute bits that entertain me. Oh dear. What other questions do we have? Oh, somebody's already thanked us for discussion of their question, which was nice. What made me to introduce a second timeline? Why did I pick the World War II period? Oh, excellent question.
Yeah.
Because it is a change. All right, growing up in Australia, for a long time, it seemed like every children's book came from the UK. There was like a lot of them. And like, you know, I grew up on Enid. Do you know Enid Blyton, Charlaine? Are you familiar with Enid Blyton? Yeah. You know, I'm like the famous 5 and the Secret 7 and the Faraway Tree. And my mom is likes to torture me by saying, I remember when you said that Enid Blyton is the greatest writer in the history of mankind. And I'm like, it's completely true. But also it was clear that like there had been many authors who had gone through the evacuation process. You know, they had been as children, they had been evacuated or had witnessed it and they wanted to write about it. So Diana Wynne Jones, her book, A Tale of Time City, that I read, it starts out with an evacuation thing. And then there's like Goodnight, Mr. Tom, which is a very beautiful story about a boy who's evacuated to the countryside. So I always sort of grew up thinking, yes, this is something important and useful to write about. And then I was thinking about, you know, the Checquy, the whole thing is they are forbidden from interfering in regular, hi, small dog. Yours, not mine. Mine's passed out on the couch.
That's Abigail.
Hi, little dog. Oh, see, Sally, you could be a good dog if you weren't lying prone on the couch. Anyway, so they are forbidden from interfering in world affairs. You know, they can protect us from the supernatural, but keep everything secret. And then I sort of thought, well, what about in World War II? You know, there are certain things, if your cities are being bombed, if you are watching your children be sent out, can you really stand by and you know, not interfere? And there's that tension, and that really sort of excited me and surprised me. And that came to me while I was waiting in line at the Subway sandwich shop, you know. And by the end, I was like, okay, I've got concepts I've got to write down. Give me a tuna sub on wheat and a pen and napkin, because I've got to write down these ideas.
Yes.
And I really wanted to do it. And then just the research really opened up so many things that I thought, okay, well, I've definitely got to include that, you know.
Yeah.
And I was sort of watching Dad's Army. Did you ever see that show? Dad's Army? Really? Oh my God, it's so good. So this is this show from England back in like maybe the 60s, 70s. And it was about the Home Guard. And these were the older men who were too old to go off to war, but they trained as the militia kind of thing. And sometimes they had weapons and sometimes they didn't. So they'd like show up for patrol with like their garden fork or the kitchen poker as the weapon. but it shows a lot of day-to-day life because the writer had been in the Home Guard. And I thought, okay, well, here's details I want to put in, like, spivs, the black market traders who, could get you a bar of chocolate or could get you, nylon stockings or whatever, that kind of thing. And then just the day-to-day research that the way people lived in a war zone. I mean, essentially it was a war zone, having digging the hole in the backyard and putting the shelter in, going and sleeping in the underground. I always mentioned these. I was reading a little biography, and this guy was like, yeah, we were taking exams, and the air raid sirens went off, and they said you can either go to the shelter or you can finish your exams. And they're like, I guess we better finish our exams, kind of thing. So it was really useful in terms of COVID because, you'd be like, we're in lockdown and there's shortages of things, or things can't be got easily. I'm like, you know what, this actually puts things in a fair amount of context. These people, A, getting bombed, but B, also, their children being like, I've never had a banana. And they try to eat the whole, but they finally get one and they eat the peel. And they're like, it's not very nice, kind of thing, that kind of thing. So I was really interested in that whole scenario situation. Yeah. And also, good villains, always good to like World War II.
Yeah, easy to tell the villains, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Although not always. There's always like the criminals profiting and stuff, that kind of thing.
There's something I wanted to ask you about your book, but so many people haven't read it yet. I can't.
Well, we can ask after. We'll chat after.
Okay, I'll ask you afterwards.
All right,
because I thought, okay, I kept waiting for something to come up, waiting to answer my question, and it did not. It didn't. So okay, you're saving it for another book, I betcha.
God, gosh. Okay.
I have to write another book. No.
This is great. We're so getting people like, oh my God, what's she talk? I better read the book because Charlaine Harris was curious. This is yeah. I got she's manipulating us all. I love it. Yeah, so it was a fun book to write. It was hard. It took a long time.
Sure. And that's a lot of characters to juggle. Do you do anything? I understand other writers write complete biographies of their characters. No. And do you do storyboards or?
Oh, I wish I were that because I would. I did as an academic, I've done time in the archives and research, and I'm always like, oh, it's great to go through all. And no, I mean, God help me, they're going to get my laptop and be like, oh, here's 57 documents, all titled notes. And it's because I'm a big fan of like, I'll have an idea, and I'll be like, okay, Control N, new document, write it down.
Yeah.
And so they're never all together. But no, I don't do the bios. I guess the closest was Usha, the Indian woman.
Yeah.
She gets that letter. I wrote a letter, she's writing to her parents and gives like it seems like, I was like, this is a very long letter, and giving her whole life and stuff. That was sort of the background for that. That was as far as I got. Otherwise, I sort of let them come out and be like, actually, you know what, this person should be an orphan. I'll throw that in, that kind of thing. Incidentally, orphan.
It needs parents.
Yeah, exactly. Although, so in the modern day part, the character Lynette, who was named from an auction. So I auctioned off the naming rights for a character, and somebody was like, somebody who was like, oh, I'd like to name it after my mother, Lynette.
Oh, cool.
Like, villain or hero? And he was like, probably hero might be best. I'm like, that's very rare.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what, actually that name fits for this character. So I think, normally you auction off a character and they get a little side thing or they get killed off briskly. And this was like half the book. I'm like, I've probably written this woman's name more than the son ever has.
Yeah.
But I knew that she would need to have quite a detailed backstory to explain why she does things and how she comes to be where she is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Randy asked, Ms. Harris, is there any chance of Gunny Rose coming to TV?
Yes. Yes, there is. It's been optioned twice. So it might be third time's the charm. It's optioned now. I'm not seeing much activity. Also, the Harper Connolly books have been optioned.
Ooh, okay.
Also, some short stories I wrote about the same character had a pilot shot, and that didn't make it, but there's more interest in these stories about a lethal school principal. I mean, my dad
Outstanding.
was a school principal. I'm sure he wanted to kill people many times.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we get so much of our inspiration. You know, people at like university, somebody would be like, "You were very quiet during that lecture." I'm like, "I was thinking about ways you could all be killed." You know.
Yes. When I had to work in the dark room, I was thinking, you know, there are all these chemicals in here, and yet they kept the coffee machine in there. Isn't that crazy?
I love it. I love it.
I thought, do you know, if I were, you know, a little bit more off kilter than I am, I could get back in.
I like it, like just a little bit.
All of
I'm
you.
already on the verge.
Not that much. That much.
Somebody just needs to say something, and you're all gonna. Oh, anonymous attendee has asked, is there an era that you would like to write about but are hesitant to dig into? No. I mean, there's eras I'd like to write about, but you know, I have no hesitation about doing it.
Well, you see, I like research, but maybe not as much as you do. I do as little as I can to produce the effect I want.
Okay.
Except if it's something interesting like wolves. You know, I can watch the
Then you go
wolves
down
in
the rabbit hole.
Yellowstone. Oh yeah. They have films of the wolves in Yellowstone. You can watch them in real time. And I'm going, what a great way to spend the day.
Like either watching them or just being a wolf. You're like, this is very, they seem very
Yes. Yeah. Who wouldn't want to do that?
fascinating to watch as well, actually, I found. If chicken, you know, I have house set for chickens, and I was always morbidly afraid of them because they have those big dinosaur talons, and I thought they would turn on me. But you know, you had to let them out, and they'd be like scratching around and chilling. You're like, this is oddly soothing. This is way better than a lot of the soap operas I've watched. You know, you can tell that Bessie really doesn't like Marguerite, that kind of thing. Whatever they're
We had
saying.
ducks.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
you could hurt them with a flashlight. That's how stupid they were. They thought the light was a living thing, you know, and you could just shine the light here and they'd go there, and shine the light here and they'd go there. And I'm going, this is very cool and convenient, but doesn't say a lot for your IQ.
Yeah, I mean, there are some species when they look at you, you're like, you know what? I could see them taking us over. The duck apparently is not one of them.
No, and they poop every 7 seconds.
Too much dairy, or just generally that's how they roll?
Lactose intolerant. I don't know.
Oh, somebody's asked a question. Have you heard any wild interpretations of character motives or subplots from your books? Any wild interpretations, thank you, Mary Michelle, of character motives or subplots from your books?
I have. Have you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, whenever you write sort of a mystery thing, I'm always like, it's going to be so obvious. They're gonna pick that right straight off. And somebody was like, oh no, I thought the murderer was the rabbit. And I was like, the rabbit? They're like, I thought the rabbit was the villain. I'm like, oh. And they're like, and here's the thing that pointed towards it. And here's the thing. I was like, oh.
Maybe the rabbit did do it.
I could never have thought of.
Daniel O'Malley was wrong. Have you ever had people tell you were wrong? The way you wrote your characters? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They've got to hide. That's you better be pretty reassured.
Oh, I'm going, I said, you know, I invented them, and you know, I believe I pretty much know what they would do.
Yeah,
so
yeah. I mean, sometimes you get sort of taken by surprise, like, oh, I did not see that coming. But they're gonna do, but if it occurs to me for a character to do something and I don't want them to do it, then they don't do it, you know.
Yeah. Oh, ha. I get that.
Okay.
I know you can't. There are writers I feel that way about. Randy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see the message.
I'm looking at Randy Robinson's.
Okay. I think and things. Oh, Joanne. Oh, Pamela Cobb. Then we'll come to Joanne. Pamela Cobb has asked, is there a character from each other's universes you would like to visit your novels and interact with your characters?
Ooh. Oh, sure. I would hang around with anybody from the Rook, even Gestalt, even though I'm really scared of Gestalt.
People really like Gestalt. So for those of you who haven't read the books, what the heck? Gestalt is a hive mind. It's 4 blonde siblings that share a single mind. So it's not a case of them just like being in each other's thoughts. It's like one single cohesive thing. And the idea for Gestalt came to me because I was helping a friend move furniture. And I was like, move the couch to the left, because we were going down the stairs, and they wouldn't. And I'm like, this would be so much easier if I had like multiple bodies. Oh wait, this is a great idea. I've got to write this down. And it was so eerie to see them brought to life on TV and in person, just to see them walking down the hallway as one. And you're just like, oh, this is really very disconcerting. And I remember one of the stage people, or one of the tech people said, oh, so you wrote this book? I'm like, I did. And they said, and you thought of the Gestalt character? I'm like, yeah. And they said, oh, did you ever think about what would happen if one of them died? And I'm like, oh, you're way nicer than me. I always wondered what would happen if they had sex with each other.
Oh, sure. Isn't that the normal thing to think about?
Thank God you say that. All right, it sounds much classier coming out of you, out of your mouth.
No, that's got to be no.
Yeah.
Sure, people would think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Joanna McLeod has asked, do we think of themes first for our novels, or do they develop while we're writing? Oh,
yes.
Really?
Yeah, often I do. I have something I want to say.
Okay.
And the character is built around who could say it.
Right. Okay.
Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. But I do generally have a subplot that consists of me trying to say something about the society I live in.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't want to sound too pompous.
Honestly, I mean, some things sort of emerge, and I'm like, oh my God, that's really, that's an ongoing. I didn't even mean to put that in. I'm so profound,
Yeah.
I was talking about it when I'm like, well, in many ways, the Rook, it's, you have this fantasy people versus these science people. Oh my God, it's science fiction versus fantasy. I didn't even think of that, but it totally works. But for Blitz, it was very much, there were 2 things, one of which is the theme of, what can you stand by and allow to happen, or showing restraint, because you have these powers and you could like just fly up and smash the Nazi bombers, but you're not allowed to. And then for the other part, I read an article in Wired magazine a few years back, and it was a guy who went on the run. He wanted to see how well he could be a fugitive in modern day. And I thought that's a really interesting thing to explore. And that's one of the reasons that Lynette Binns has to go on the run from the Checquy. I also wanted to say, I always get a little wary of it. This is the organization, and they are always right, and they are always good. And I wanted to have them be the frightening villain taking somebody, going after somebody. I thought that'd be kind of a fun perspective.
Oh, Lynette's such an admirable character. I mean, she has such a tough hand dealt her, such a tough hand, and yet she's trying to make it work for her family and herself. And it just seems impossible that would work out well for her. And yet, amazingly, she has a chance.
Yeah, but that was a sequence I really enjoyed writing and thinking about, was that horrible, because every once in a while you'll have that horrible revelation. You're like, I said that thing that sounds, but this, okay, here's the revelation. If I don't act now, I'm going to be imprisoned, probably executed. I've got to go on the run. I have a husband, I have a child, I have a whippet, but I have a family, and I have a life, and these people around me, if they knew they would attack me now, I've got to go. What do I do?
Yeah.
How do I do this? And that
she's
was very
intelligent.
Yeah. Well, librarian, so
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was like, how can I establish this character is going to be extremely competent and extremely knowledgeable and extremely organized? I will make her a librarian. It's to the hand, really,
Oh, here's something for you.
Oh, okay.
Dan, what are the chances of a Shantae-focused book?
Ooh,
or at least a short story?
I would definitely like to do that. So for those of you who are uncertain, Shantae is the American friend in the first book and appears in the second. She is even higher ranking in the American supernatural organization, African-American lady who can turn into metal, living metal, or even just parts of herself into living metal. And I'm very, very fond of that character. And the name came from one of my students at Ohio State. I was, grad student, I had classes, and Shantae was outstanding. And I wrote to her and I said, hey, do you mind if I use your name? And she's like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, and I just need to, check a few things, cultural origins and stuff. I would very much, I would love to write an American book. I think it would be probably the main character would still need to be an outsider. So it's always useful to have an outsider main character so that you can have somebody explaining why in God's name things work that way. So it would probably be a visiting British person or or an Australian even, although I'm dual citizen, so American Australian. But yeah,
Okay.
I'd like very much to write something with her. Explore her life more. She's come from challenging circumstances, that kind of thing. Not super challenging, but challenging enough. But also, explore the differences between the UK and the American supernatural governments. And that was the thing I really actually enjoyed in Blitz, was looking at, here's the modern day organization, and then here's the older one from World War II. Back then they had like apprentices and a master apprentice system. Now it's more of an internship, that kind of thing. Go off to boarding school, that was super fun to write. It was having because you see these, I have one with like a Harry Potter waitlist or a Hogwarts waitlist T-shirt, where people are like, oh, I'm waiting for my owl from Hogwarts. I'm like, you're 37, come on. And I like the idea of somebody going off to boarding school. And I went to private school, which had a boarding school. I did not board. It was like 5 minutes drive away. But I'd grown up on like Enid Blyton and stuff. So I'm like, yes, boarding school, that would be so much fun. My parents are like, settle in for a year. And then if you really want to board 5 minutes away, we could look at that. And then I saw how my friends in the boarding house were living. And I was like, I don't think it would work for me.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of an adult being sent off to boarding school, magical boarding school, and then being like, okay, here's your uniform. And they're like, uniform? And here's your 15-year-old roommate. And if you don't have your socks pulled up, you'll get a detention, and that kind of thing. I thought that would be fun. I had fun writing that.
Well, sure. Who wouldn't?
Thank you.
There.
And then her next book, I'm like, wait a minute, Charlaine Harris is writing about a magical boarding school?
I am now. Well, I did though in the Gunny Rose books.
Oh, there is that.
That's where the half sister is going to school. In fact, that's what the book coming out in November is about. The Serpent in Heaven. It's about the school in San Diego.
I was going to grab my copy of the first one so I can show people how much I love it.
Oh, thank
Actually,
you.
this is my friend's copy. I have my copy buried in the archives, and I was like, I need to take a photo of both. I don't know where it is in this stack of books, so I just borrowed it from a friend. But it looks so good. So mine looks exactly like this. Except it's not here. Such a good series. So
You have the invisible copy.
Rest assured, it exists.
Yeah, right. Borrowed it from
I have the smaller
friend.
one. This is the one that's like the size of your head. I have the one that's the size of a pectoral muscle.
Don't even get into that.
Pectoral, that's it. Oh, Mary Michelle has asked, how do we know when a story is done? When a series is done?
Oh, what a good when you can't stand the idea of starting another book in it. That's when the series is done.
Wow,
when you feel no joy, it's time to wrap it up.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. And that's for when how about when how do you know when the book is done?
When they shut up. The last book I wrote, I just could not get them to shut up. I couldn't get them to say the last thing. I'm going, come on. And they kept talking and they kept talking and they kept talking and they kept talking. I thought, come on, say the last line. And finally, one of them did. I thought, okay, that's the stopping line right there.
I just picture me like, okay, we're done.
Stick a fork in me. I'm done.
For me, I mean, I generally know where the ending is going. I generally know how it's going to end. And I've been reading the biography of Terry Pratchett, and they talk about, and they say he ascribed to the Misty Valley school, which was you're in a place and you can see the ending far away, but it's all fog in between. You don't know how you're going to get there. And I'm like, okay, that's yeah, for most of the thing, that's how I sort of work. I'll have like things that I know I want to include, but I'm not necessarily sure how I'm going to have the scene in the brothel, that kind of thing. At some point they'll get to a brothel. Got that in there, but I'm not sure exactly how I'll get there. Yeah, thanks, Mary Michelle. That was a great question.
It was.
Allison Ziegler says, what's your favorite thing about being writers? She's starting to write and we both inspire her.
Aw, meeting other writers. That's the best thing about being a writer.
Nice save, yeah.
Well, it is, though. You think, now they're my peers and I can walk up to them and say, hi, I'm Charlaine Harris,
Yeah, I love walking up to people and saying, I'm Charlaine Harris. And they're like,
I knew you did that. I had heard that.
She has curly hair and glasses. But
curly hair, glasses, good complexion. So
I think my cheeks are fatter or much rounder, but
but I've loved meeting the writers I've read like you and enjoyed so much, and I have a legitimate reason to talk to them.
Absolutely. I do like that very much, especially when they're like, do you want to come for, so we're having drinks, like, absolutely. It'll be like it's less here we are at the panel and more, so this, oh my God, yes, that's always super fun. I'm just looking for any other questions. Now that we've each had television shows, has that influenced the way you now write? Does it help you to visualize your characters and storylines in a different way? I have certainly, so Jolie Richardson played Linda Ferrier on the TV show and completely altered the way I thought about that character in terms of appearance. And, it's all very well to write and say, a stately bearing or, sort of a majesty. And then you meet somebody with an extremely stately bearing who really does have that you sort of feel like you should bow when you meet them. And I made her younger as a result. So, because Jolie Richardson is not as old as I had written the character originally. And
right.
Okay, that's who I have in mind now when I write that character is Jolie Richardson, because she did such a fantastic job and was so nice too,
Oh,
but also she just played the hell out of that character. And I remember watching as they were shooting a scene where she was telling a story, and I was just like, but it was in a crowd, and every single person wasn't just being polite. They were all like, okay. And when she did like the third time, and we were all like, okay. So she did a splendid job. That one, if nothing else, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? I don't think so. Which character were you wrong about?
Wrong?
I don't know. I think that may be a reference to that may have been like a conversation 15 minutes ago.
No, I can't be wrong about my own character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always correct. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah. Me make a mistake.
How dare you? Have them removed. No. Actually, if this is the Laura Turner I'm thinking, I know that Laura Turner. How splendid. Okay. Any other questions? Or chat even? Just playing with the computer. No. All right. Did you have anything you wanted to ask, Charlaine? I have things I want to ask you, but.
Oh. Well, I do want to know when your next book is going to come out, because I really kind of pestered your editors this time.
Oh man, sooner. He says much sooner.
Than.
I'm well into it. Let's go.
Okay.
And I'm determined that it won't be as preposterously long. So I do have already my weird tangents, and like some of those are going to get cut. But here's a long involved backstory of a side character. It adds to the world, but man, yeah, so those things will get cut. Oh, here's a nice remark from somebody. Thank you so much. You two are hilarious together, and this was so much fun. Thank you, Nicole.
For us as well.
And Laura. Bless you all. I mean, in an ideal world, we'd all be like sitting around on couches with beverages and snackies and stuff. But next time.
Cheetos.
Oh, really? You're a Cheetos kind of person?
I haven't eaten a Cheeto in 20 years, but I can dream.
You sound like you're being denied the Cheeto.
I am my
Okay.
own rigorous willpower.
I admire your restraint. I'm really very for it, that sort of thing.
I tell you what, Cheeto denier. That's me.
That's going to go in the tomb. That'll be on the tombstone. That'll be like,
Yep.
Charlaine Harris. Yeah. Actually, I kind of like the idea of Charlaine Harris birth date. This to unknown. Still not established. And then they're like Cheeto denier, and a whole list of, and then the list.
And
One of
then the list.
I can see our gentleman host is looking expectant. We'll leave in a sec, but I have a mildly amusing anecdote, which is that I had to go, during lockdown here, we could go for, like, you had your hour walk, and my dad and I would go for walks. And one of them we did was the cemetery, and we spent the whole time criticizing the tombstones. I was like, this is terrible. This gives no info. Oh, dearly beloved, how interesting. But the ones for the priests were always like, worked in this, converted the heathen here, dispatch. And I'm like, I'm already planning my tombstone, quite aside from like the bibliography, which hopefully will be longer than the 3. It's also going to be, mildly, maybe an excerpt from like one of the good books and stuff. I want an interesting tombstone.
Oh, that sounds, so you're going to be buried and not cremated?
Oh, no, I'm not. I don't anticipate dying, but I think I'll just dot them around.
Okay.
Actually, and I went to one tombstone recently, and they had a QR code on it. So you could scan your phone and it would take you to a website about the person. I was like, that's kind of nice.
Get out of here.
Although I also worry about future historians. I'm always worried about them being like, oh, that's an internet thing. They used to have the internet before it got eaten by that one guy. Oh, I think we are reaching our breaking point.
Yeah, I think he's going to tell us to shut up.
Like, you're done.
I don't want to cut you two off, but if you're done, yeah, that's all good. Perfect.
That's all that the internet can bear.
Well, it was fantastic having you both with us, and what a great conversation today. You two, yeah, it's always great to have you two here. So anytime.
Thank you so
Please,
much.
hopefully, Daniel, hopefully we'll get both of you. Hopefully we'll see you in person at some point. So
That would be lovely.
really nice.
I would kill for that. Yeah. Miss the States. I miss the States.
Yeah. So the next one. So anyway, yes, everyone out there, please go purchase a copy of Blitz here, and that's there's a link in the chat. Put it in there a couple times. It's on pals.com. Easy to look up there too. And yeah, while you're there, check out our lineup of upcoming virtual events. Also a reminder that Charlaine's next book, The Serpent in Heaven, comes out.
A multitude of Charlaine Harris books.
Yeah. Here's the last one. I think the one right before.
Yes,
Yeah, the Russian cage.
Oh, this is like the American cover. Okay.
Yeah. It's very cool. So anyway, go definitely check that out. And yeah, and we
Thank you so much for having us. Charlaine, thank you
Absolutely.
so much for coming on to play. Send me that threatening email about the question that you wanted answered.
I will. This was just so much fun for me. And thank you for inviting me to share this hour with you.
Thank you so much for coming. And Powell's, thank you so much for hosting. You've
so
been great.
Thank you, Powell's.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Powell's is great. And we'll talk to you all soon in the near future, hopefully. All right.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Time to pass out for me. Bye, kids. Thanks a lot.